Hello everyone, welcome back again to the part 2 of how you can detail any solid slab correctly from the beginning to the end. You know, one thing is to have your slab, to have different sizes of slab. You have different slab of any kind of varieties. It can be the foundation slab, it can be your first floor slab, and any kind of slab. It could be slab for your lift, it could be slab for your tank. But secondly, regardless of all the slab you're detailing, another thing you must consider is how you can detail an effective section, how you can cut the section. So in today's video, we'll be looking at how we are going to cut a section of this slab that we have already produced on our previous video. And my name is Adasi Junel, and I'm your instructor. Now, for you to be able to detail any slab very effective, you need to have a comprehensive section that communicates the idea of what the slab look like. So, for you to do that, you have to first of all analyze your floor. You have to first of all analyze your floor. You can see what we've done from the previous video. If you not watched the video, please, I want you to go back and watch the video on how you can detail any solid slab, from the beginning to the end. So in this regard, what we're going to do right now, like we always say, we always go by the layer. But before we go to the layer, what you're going to do, a fast way for you to understand it is cutting of the section. So cutting of the section, it's not just like, for example, you say, okay, you want to cut a section. So how do you cut a section? The first thing is all about understanding how to cut. Now, if you know how to cut, you can understand how to represent. First of all, what you know is where did you want to cut. Like if you look at this area, if you look at this area now where I am, I have this beam at this region, and I have another beam at the middle here, and another one at this point. All right, so I'm having a slab at this point, and another slab at this part. So it's not the same thing here, because you can see if I'm going to cut this with my grid, if I'm going to introduce a grid, so we can see by me introducing a grid, I have a grid of 1, 2, and I have another grid of 3. I have a grid of 3A and I have a grid of B. You can see cutting across the grid, you can see that at this first point, the section I'm going to have is going to be at point 2, right? And point 3, okay? And the last one will be on point 4. But if I'm going to cut the section about this region, if I'm going to cut the section about this region, what I'm trying to say is this. Let's color this in red. You can see. Let's copy this also to this point. Now you can see. Now let's say I'm cutting the point at this point. So let's call this point A and let's call this one point B. So if I have in this direction, if I'm cutting along this area, you can see that I'm going to have, yes, this beam is going to be at the same position, and this other beam is going to be at the same position, like what we have here. All right, what we have there. But the middle one, the middle beam here is going to shift. You can see at this point, I have the middle beam along here, along grid 3, and while along this area, I'm having the middle beam along what grid 3A. All right. So if I'm cutting this section, what I'm going to see over here, I'm going to have the beam along here, and if I'm cutting about this area, this is what I'm going to see. Okay. So once you understand this fact, about cutting, you know that at this point you're going to show your beam details. About this point, you're going to show your beam details, and also at this point, then your slab details will be all over here. So you're going to show how your slab is going to intercept into your wall. You're going to show how it's going to intercept into your column. So we're going to have a beam. You can see the beam reinforcement. Regardless, this might not necessarily be the size of the bar, but being a detail, you have to confirm from the beam detail before you do this. So if I have this at this point, you can see the middle point, right? You can see what we have at the middle point and the other point. So in doing that, this is just another sample. I'm just using this kind of uh, uh, um, a sample for we to have the basic knowledge of what we're going to have here. All right. So this is what we're trying to do. We're going to cut a section along this area and along this area. Being a quick one, someone can decide to have you can decide to pick your construction line, and you're going to draw your construction line from this, and you're going to offset, you know, as the case may be. But I don't want to do that. I just want to make it fast. So what I'm going to do, since I'm cutting along this area, I'm going to highlight the beam along that area. So I'm going to highlight this beam along this area. Since it's the same beam that I'm going to cut, then I'm going to copy it out. I'm going to copy it out. It has to be your auto needs to be on so that everything is going to be straight. All right. So this is what we have. We've already cut the section. So from here, you can decide to move this line up, can move this line up. So what we are going to do, the thickness of our slab, the thickness of this slab that we are reinforcing is what is 150 millimeter. All right. So we are telling 150 millimeter, and the depth of this beam that we have are all 450. All right. So what we're going to do, we're going to offset, go to offset 150, all in millimeter. Our scale is set down to millimeter. So what we're going to have is 300. So don't forget that the nominal, the beam depth is what is 450. So if we take our slab to be 150, you know that the nominal depth for the beam is going to be what, 300. All right. So by the time you take the override dimension here, you'll be having 450. Okay. And if you have here, you have here to be 150, and over here will be what, will be 300. So in doing this, we are all correct. So let's go back to what we are doing. So having these, we're going to trim. Okay, we are going to trim over here. Let's try to move this down. Let's try to move this down so that later we're going to just pick up our. So cutting it at this section, what we're going to do, we're just going to highlight this. Is where you have your grid, because this grid is going to come with your structural plan. So you can copy any of this grid from your structural plan. You don't have to worry about that. Paste it here. So what do? We're going to try to trim. So we're going to trim this off, trim this off, trim this off. We're going to be trimming this, and we'll take the whole of this out, right? We're going to take the whole of this out. Okay, take this out, and the same thing here. Okay, because I need a straight line, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to copy this, just going to copy this down, and I'm going to trim this off. I'm going to trim this line off, after which I'm going to take this off. You can see, because I just want to terminate the grid, right? Just want to terminate the grid at that point, so I can later dimension, so I can further continue the trimming by trimming these sections. Okay, you can see, and here we can trim our beam inside. We're going to trim all here. We're going to trim what we have. We're going to trim this area. Okay. So in this regard, what I'm going to do, since I'm working with this beam, I just want this to show as the final line. What I'm going to do, I'm going to match property to all of them. Okay, we're going to match property to take this. So you can see the final, this is the final approach to the what? This is the final approach to our reinforcement. We'll be needing this. So what we're going to do is going to copy this. We're going to copy this out. All right, because this is going to show us our concrete. This is going to show us our concrete outline. All right, we're going to have you should be able to detail the concrete outline and the reinforcement section. All right, so that's what we're going to do. So at this point, we're going to concentrate on the reinforcement right now, because we are done. We've gotten the section, by getting this. But don't forget, if we would have cut this section, what we're going to have is this beam. So this beam is going to fall along this area, right? It's going to fall along this grid, not along this grid that we have here. So that's simple. So that's what you just need to know. You just have to play, by cutting. Once you know how to cut, you can know how to represent here. That's what I meant earlier. All right. So in this regard, now what we're going to do is to start offsetting. So this is our 150. All right. So this is our 150 dimension, our 150 thickness slab that we've already reinforced. So in cutting this section, your concrete cover. The concrete cover above should be what? Should be 25, right? So if you take 25 from this, we're going to take 25. Okay. So if you take 25 out of this and 25 at the bottom, so what is this supposed to mean? This is supposed to say that what we're going to have here, anything you're detailing should not exceed 25, all right? So that this is going to be our concrete cover, all right? So this is going to be our concrete cover. We're going to have 25 to be our concrete cover, all right? Both top and both bottom. because that's what we're going to do. So all our reinforcement will going to be set along this boundary, along these two boundaries. It's not going to exceed over this boundary, okay? So right away, we can start our bottom reinforcement. You can see at this point, if you look at what we have here, I want you to come here. Since you have something like this, I want you to start to do what we call a tracing. You can have your construction line. Pick your construction line again, and you try to get where do you have ending. You pick it. Then after doing that, you're going to pick this line. Okay? Pick this line that you've already done. You can see the construction line. Let me take this off and do it again. This is your construction line. Now you're going to create another construction line. Let's change the layer. Let's change it to a neutral, you know, take it to 0, okay? 0, and everything should be by what? By layer. You can see by layer. So please let's maintain that. And let's go to construction line. You pick your construction line and you go to where you have your beginning. You can easily click it. So by that doing, we've already created what? Where we're going to stop here, okay? So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to click on it and we're going to copy, okay? So we're going to copy and add it to anywhere we have our point. You can see this is where our top bar stops. So we're going to paste it there. And you can see this is where we have our lapping. We're going to introduce it. We have the same thing over here, and we have the same thing over this point. You see, for we not to get confused, I think we should remove the top bar for now. Let's also concentrate on the bottom bar. Then we can come back and we look at the top bar. Okay. So in this regard, you can see we start from where the bottom bar starts, and you can see we introduce it where the bottom bar stop along this area, and where we have, don't forget, we have the 30 extending. We have the 30 extending the beams, okay? So we have 30 here extending down our beams from this point down to where we have, you can see our 30 extending. So that's what we just did. We put it at the 30 extending from what we've already done. All right. So if you look at it, this is what we have. So if this is supposed to be our reinforcement, of course, we're going to match property to our rebars. All right. We want to click match property to our rebars. You can see this should be our bottom bar. So we click on the bottom. Okay, so in doing that, we can still change the color to what? Blue, right? So you have the same column property with what we have here, right? You can see this is our bottom rebars with the color of blue, right? I changed the color, all right? So this is what we're going to do. So in having this, we're going to still copy this because it's all bottom. Go to match property down here. So we have the same layer of reinforcement down here, all right? So first of all, before you do this, you're going to check which among these should be your bottom and which is supposed to be your bottom top. Okay, you don't just do it. So you're going to check which is the bottom and which is the bottom top. So since we are cutting the section about this area, okay, let's take this out because we're not cutting section about this. Or we can change the color of these to be yellow. Okay, we're not cutting section about this portion. So what we're going to do is we're all looking along this region. So in cutting section along this region, what we're going to do right here is what we'll do is to check if what we have here is actually the bottom. That is the one that is supposed to be laid first on the ground before the other one. Like I said in the previous video, you're supposed to have one on the top and one at the bottom, even at the bottom bar. That's where we have our main and our distribution, all right? And as well as the top too, we have the main and we have the distribution on the top. So one ought to be laid first before the other comes on. So, right? So what do we do? So we'll come here, you're going to check like this label. You can see we are cutting this bar. So we're cutting bar along this area. And you can see, look at this line. This line is saying that this bar, this reinforcement here, run across this area. So it's running across the area where we are cutting our section from. All right. So we're going to look at this reinforcement right now. So the reinforcement label is what we are going to trace. So if you trace the reinforcement label, you can see that this is what we have. We have 25 number of it. This is 25 number of this reinforcement running across, and it's what? It's bottom. It is the one we're going to lay first. Coming over here to down to this reinforcement also, you're going to see that it's the bottom, and we still have 22 of it because what is starting from this extension and this is extending down here. All right. So this reinforcement is running along this span and this is running along this area. You can see there's a difference between this beam here. That's why you have 22 here and we have additional 25 along this area. Okay, so they are the bottom bars. So in that regard, we know that these are the one that is going to be at the bottom and the one that's going to be at the top. So what we're going to do at this point is we're going to elevate one reinforcement out to extend up to 30, one has to extend down to this portion, and the other needs to go to the other portion. So what we're going to do right now, we're going to create another bar. We're going to get another reinforcement. We're going to get another reinforcement. Maybe you can copy your line, maybe offset it a little distance from it. Then we'll come down to this area. You can see to this region. So in that regard, you're going to push this. We're going to push this. I'm going to push this down to this spot. Okay, I'm going to push this down to this spot. So if I push this down to this spot, I'm going to so that my inclination angle will not be so sharp. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to now copy this, move this other reinforcement down to this area. You can see. Then from that area, I'm going to create another line. I'm going to take it down to this other point. So you can see what I just did there. Try to understand what I'm trying to do over there. What I'm trying to do there is overlay because this reinforcement is going to be matched together. Okay. If you look at how they cross each other. So when they cross each other, they ought to be joined together. They ought to be joined together. So when you're crossing, they all have the same spacing, right? They still have the same spacing. So for every span, they will be crossing it the same spacing. All right. So this will go 22 from here, 22 from here, from this region. We're still going to have 22 over here down to this portion. Then you have a standard additional 3 at this area. So this means for every cross section, we'll be having them tied together. All right. So they have to be tied together. So since they have to be tied together, that's why I just created this because this will be the lapping. So when you're introducing a lapping, this is how it should be on your section. All right. This is not additional bar. This is a section. That's why you see I'm going to do this. I'm not going to join because if I join this, it will look a little bit confused. On your beam, what I'm supposed to do is what I call the kink on your beam. Why doing a beam? You're supposed to introduce what they call a kink on a beam. So here is another example of what I have. Let's say we have a section of this slab. Right? Let's say we're talking about this. We're talking about beam. We're going to relate about beam, but now we're talking about slab. Let's try to get more into the slab. All right? Now, this is one of my slab section that I've already called for one of my projects I've done for one of my clients. You look at this. I wanted to show you what I mean by the kink. Look at this. You can see this stuff here. You can see I don't want to separate this because this is another layer. I have another layer of reinforcement running, and I have another layer of rebar coming this at this V shape. All right, so it's coming at this V shape. I don't want to overlap. So what I try to do is to introduce this. It's called a stopper, reinforcement stopper, or you can call it a kink. All right, so it's trying to tell you that this is where this reinforcement is going to start at this point, and it goes down and down, and it's going to end at this point. So the same thing here, you can see it's telling you that that the rebar is going to start along this area and extend. Understand? So it's trying to tell you that this rebar is going to start along this area and it's going to extend and stop somewhere here. So the king is just like a stopper. So otherwise, if you don't want to use the king, you can as well go back to use our what? Our overlap reinforcement. You can do this. You can see this is actually proper, right? So in doing this, we can still go back. So currently now we're done with this, and we can see we've gotten to the end of this. What we're going to do is to extend our river from here down to meet the, where it starts along here that we pick, all right? Where it starts here, we're going to make sure we're going to reflect it on our section, okay? So the same thing, we're going to move it down here. I'm going to make sure it reflects on our section, okay? But this is always wise. We'll put it close to the beam. So in that regard, I'm going to extend it down to the beam, all right? While I'm creating our beam section here. So what do we have to do? Currently now, what I'm going to do here is to introduce our top rebar, okay? So we're going to go back to the top rebar. So we're looking at this. At this top rebar here, what do we have here? Here, we have the top rebar here running from this axis. You can see the runner. You can see the label line, all right? The color line, calling it from this point. Let's take this off because we are done with this. Let's take this also off. Let's take this also off. Those were done with the bottom bar. So in talking about the top bar now, you can see along this area, you can see we have this 4, we can have this bar running along this line up. So it's running 22 along this line and it's top, which means it's going to be at the topmost top. So every other thing that is going to be beneath. You can see this guy over here is running along here, 4 on number, and it's going to run under it, 4 on this other side of the beam, 4 on this other side of the beam, and also 4 on this other side of the beam, just to continue the math. And this member is going to be under this particular one and under the top bar that is returning here and what is returning here. So what we're going to do is to implicate it on our structure. What do? We're done with this, so we're going to take this off. We're going to take this off. So we're going to get one and copy it. We're going to copy one and we're going to put it where it's starting. So we're going to start at this point and end at this point. So the same thing here. Don't forget we're concentrating on the top bar. So that's what I did. You can see I put it here. Okay. So that's what we'll get. So on the other area, we're going to bring down our top bar. So it's very possible for you to say, or what do you copy this? You can also copy this, what you have already, so you don't waste most of your time. Okay. So what you do, you can copy from let's copy from a particular point of range. Let's copy from here. And we're taking it down. So it's going to match here. So you can see at this point, we're going to move this back so that it's going to fit where it ought to be. It's going to be at the topmost top. So that's what we have. So we're now going to take this off because this is just to get our range. Don't forget we have another one here. So let's move this down too. So we're moving this down, try to set everything up. So we're going to take this. Don't forget this is just a gauge for us to have our reference, all right? So we're taking it off so we cannot see. Let's increase the thickness of this so that everything would be show. Let's call it 25, right? So we'll match property, the purpose of the drawing, so that every other it will be bold, it will show different from what we have, okay? So the same thing we have here. Okay, and on the top bar, we are going to do the same thing. We have dash line, so we are going to do the same thing, the same 35. We match property, you match your property. You just have to bring the thickness so that it will be different from the line, to be view and transparent, all right? So you can see what we have here. So let's feel we've done this, okay? So this is going to be at the topmost top and this is going to be at the bottom. You can see. So the next thing we're going to do before we drop our floor reinforcement, before we drop all our reinforcement along this region, what we're going to do right here is to cut the beam section. Let's cut this beam section, all right? So before you cut the section, you're going to look at this is your beam, all right? This is our beam, our drop down beam. So we're going to look at what will be our concrete cover in the beam, right? What will be a concrete cover? So let's say we are having 30 from this beam, having 30 to be our concrete cover, right? So we're going to offset 30 millimeter. On the reinforcement, we offset our concrete cover was 25, okay? That will be specified on the drawing, right? So this other area, we're going to take 30, right? Because this is going to be on top of this, all right? This is going to lay on top of the beam, all right? The slab is going to lay on top of the beam. So what we're going to do right here is we're going to have our chamfer, like I always say, let's try with chamfer and let's take a radius of 20 is already there. So we're going to click this, cut it, do the same. So we're going to do the same here. You can see this will be the stirrup for our rebar, right? This will be the stirrup for our rebar. So what we're going to do is just as simple as copying this to every other place where we'll have the same beam. But before we do this, let's just try to specify our rebar. We can just cut, let's take our reinforcement. You click your reinforcement. So you can go by saying 16, by typing 16, and you click, you can see your 16 rebar just flow. So you can move it and size it, make it fit. Okay, can make it fit. You can copy on this other area. You can also copy and also make it fit. So what we're going to do, the same thing, we can get it here, do the same thing. We can also copy and try to size it, right? We try to size it on the line. This is just more of detail, so you can do this. So for basic reason, based on what we have on the span, we can also make it 3 along the area. We can also make it 3. So what do? We can copy at the midpoint and put it at this middle. So we can still make it 3 for all the section. So what we're going to do, we're going to copy this and send it to every area where we have something of this nature. Okay? You can decide to block it, but for the purpose of this video, I just want to stay simple. All right, so what we're going to do, we're going to copy this from this point. Since we have the same depth, the same width and the same depth of the beam, so we are having the same strip running along the whole area. All right, so this is what we have. So you cannot have your lintel. Sometimes you can put it this way, but what we're going to do, we can decide to push it behind. All right, we can decide to push what we have here behind. Okay, can decide to move it behind, but in most cases, um, see a lot of people putting it this way, but could recommend that we push it behind, right? And just push it a little bit behind, at which you can take this back to where it comes from, where it was before. So you just have to do this. So what I'm trying to do is just to push it behind, right? So with this, you can just push it very, very close. And the same vein, take it back, take it back. All right, so that what we're going to do this, the essence of this is so that the beam, when we put our reinforcement, we can take it around the beam, right? We can bend it along the beam, so it's going to rest on the beam, okay? So it ought to be this. So you can also do that on your plan if that's what you want. So you can see, so we are intact. So at this point right now, what we're going to do, we already have our section intact. So what we're going to do right now is to get our rebars, right? We're going to have our rebars. So before we get our rebars, we're going to divide this into different panels, right? Along this area, we have, if you check what we have here, we have how many numbers? If you check within here, from here down to this span, okay? Are the numbers we have? We have 25, okay? We have 25 running along this line, and we have 16 running along this line. So what you're going to do, all the spacing is in what? In twin, what do you call it? 200 millimeter. So what you're going to do, we are done with this line, so I guess we can just get rid of these lines, right? Can get rid of this line. So what we're going to do basically is to get a line. We can get a linear line along here from the start point. Let's say this is our start point. Okay, we can get a linear line from this start point up. You can see. So getting a linear line from this start point, we're going to introduce a circle. We're going to introduce what? A circle. So if you introduce a circle, this is circle 112 millimeters. So the circle should be this. All right. So we're going to move it down. Mind you should be able to rest on it. Okay, so you can see what we have here. So in this rebar, we can decide to increase the size of it to say, okay, let's say 40, so that we have, don't need to worry to be transparent, right? Or we can say 35 as the case may be. Let's keep the same thing. 35 is good this way. So having 35 at this area, what you're going to do, don't forget we have 20, we have like 25 along this area. So what you're going to do is to offset. So we're going to offset, also offset this spacing, and we're going to go by multiple, right? Going to go by multiple. So if we say um multiple, we'll click on this and on this area. So I don't want to use this to go much more, to go far with this. I just want to stop it at this point. Okay, I just want to stop it at this point. So I'm going to copy this. I'm going to copy the same thing here up. I'm going to copy this same rebar. I'm going to copy it up. Just copy it and put it over here. You can see every area where we have these rebars, right? So this is what we are going to do. So Along this side, I'm copying it again from this spot. I'm going to drop it here. You can see, and here. All right. So what I'm going to do right now is to copy this. I'm going to copy this. Barely knowing that all this spacing are what? 200 spacing, right? 200 millimeter spacing. So I'm done with this top bar. So what I'm going to do at this point is to copy this. I'm going to uncopy this, all right? I'm going to uncopy this. You press your shift and you uncopy it, all right? So you're going to copy it. You're going to copy this from this spot, from the middle spot, all right? So what you're going to do is you're copying all of this. I'm copying this that I already have, right? So I'm going to copy this. So each time I click on this, you can see I have a reinforcement. So each time I click on this middle, it will be copying. So I don't need to introduce more of this line everywhere, all right? So this line is just to centralize the one I'm going to take. So for H, I'm going to copy, I'm going to put intercept. You can see I got there over. So at this point, we're going to stop and we're going to do the same thing. I'm going to copy the same line over here. I'm going to copy the same line over here. You can see, and over here. All right. So I'm going to take this off because it's not flowing. All right. So what I'm going to do right here is to do what? So we're going to copy the same thing. We can copy as much as we can. All right. We copy as much as we can so that we can be fast. We can copy this, take the middle. The section point, you do that, just put your cursor on it. So I'm sorry, let's undo that. So let's copy as much as we can. Again, let's copy as much as we can. In this time, we're going to take the middle, take it from the line. We're going to come back down to this spot and we'll click. You can see we're going to readdress that. So when we come here, we're going to click. We'll keep on doing that to the end, right? So click this down to the end. So you can see we've already arrived at the end. So I'm going to take this off because we don't have them anymore. So I'm going to take this off and I'm going to introduce this line because I just want to use it as a boundary line for the concrete, showing the difference between the beam um and the slab, right? So I'm going to do this again. So I'm going to copy this back to this point. You can see just intercept and at that point. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to set this all of these to another color so that it will be faint, all right? We're going to make it to be line. We're going to make them to be line color 8. So just go here and type color 8. Just type color 8 and it's going to reflect. That's color 8, right? All of this color has their code. So when we are done with this, we're going to delete it. We're going to take this off because we won't be needing them. We only use them for our alignment, right? So we won't be needing them. So I'm going to take them off. You can see, you can see that this is faint running along this area. You can see. So we're done with that. So you can see along this area, you can still leave this because no cause for alarm. This is trying to tell you that there is reflection, right? That there is reflection about this area, that this is lapping. So on side, what you're going to do is to lap it, all right? But if you want to push it up, you can still push it up. But for the purpose of this video, I think I will be leaving it. So what I'm going to do is to copy this and insert at the start point. So we won't be leaving it because it's going to, that is where we're going to start our beginning point, and that will be the same thing. So the same thing we have here is going to go up, right? Same thing will go at this point, it's going to go up, okay? Because they have what? The same alignment, they have the same spacing. So we're going to push it up and there we go. You can see. So successfully, you can see what we got on our section. Taking it round and about the top, you can see along this area. So about this point, you can also decide to change this color or we can leave it. But this is just the beam there for 16 and this is for 12, all right? So at this area, we're going to put this too. We're going to take this up. Let's copy the reinforcement here and put it up. And see what I've done. So that gradually we're up there getting our section. So what we're going to do next is to introduce our text. Meanwhile, this is the concrete section of it. This is what we're going to use in getting our concrete, section, telling you how the concrete is going to look like, what we're going to cast, all right? So, and this is the reinforcement layout, all right? This is the reinforcement layout of the section, okay? So let's bear this in mind even as we, introduce our rebar. So right now, we're going to go back to trace all this reinforcement, all the reinforcement, and we're going to link them. So first of all, we're going to get a text for this. We're going to, get a text in this. So you can see I've got a text and an arrow identifying the text. So this is what we're going to do at this area. And we also got another one for this text, all right? So in doing this, what we're going to do is to change what we have for this level, okay? So what we got here is to create, what we have here is Y. So since we are doing it with Y, let's just go with Y. You can go with T, depending on the code you're using. So this is 12 and the bar specification, we have 00. So in looking at this bar that's running that we got, here is it, here is the reinforcement, right? So the bar label, the bar is what? 05, right? 05 at this spacing. So we have Y12. So what we are going to put there is Y12. We are not putting the spacing because we are cutting a section, okay? So we are going to put only the size and the bar and the spacing. We all know that it's bottom because it's showing at the section. So that's what we're going to do right here. So you can see, so we're going to introduce what? 05. And that's what we got. So the same thing, so we're going to copy this. We're going to copy this over this other reinforcement and we're going to edit. Okay, we're going to edit. So here, what we have is this reinforcement. So this reinforcement, the size is what? 12 and the bar is 11. Okay, so we're going to go back and say 11. So we're going to type 11. It's the same 12 all right? So on this region, we still have 12 So we're going to edit this to be 12 and we're going to have the same spacing. So what do we have here? This is the reinforcement, okay? This is our reinforcement we are looking at. This is the reinforcement, all right? So the reinforcement trace is what? 06, all right? So it's 06 and the returning, this returning here will take the same label as this because we use the same bar to return it, okay? In this our design, we use the same bar to return. So we all name it 11. And here too, we use the same bar to return our top bar here and we'll call it 6. Sorry, we'll call it what? 5. So this return up here will be 5 and this return up here will be 5. All right? I hope there is no confusion. But listen to me. This is what I'm trying to say. Look at this rebar here. We return it and we call it 5. So both the bottom, we call it 5. So this little return, we're going to specify it to be what? 11. So if there's going to be any confusion, if you feel that there is going to be any confusion, what we're going to do is to terminate it. We're not going to include it. But for the purpose of our detail, it is very, very simple. So we can make this is the same 5 for the top bar, and here will be the same 11, and where here becomes 6. Okay. So this portion, this time we're going to copy this. I'm going to take this over here, and we're going to copy and we'll paste over here. So here becomes the same with this because it went through here and return, all right? The return, so we are going to give them the same rebar, all right? Since we have the same rebar over there, we can also give them the same, all right? Just that this is top, it doesn't change anything. And we're going to change this to be what? Y, all right? This is going to be Y, the same Y we are using on Y. So we'll still go with Y over here. So here is going to be Y, So at this point, what we'll have there in our top over here is what? 06. So we'll go with 06. Okay, 06 at the same spacing and the same thing here. What we have here is 11. So we're going to make this 11, the same return. So we are done with this. So we now come over here. This rebar, this bar that is running, our bottom top. What will be the bar number for our bottom top? Look at it here. This is where we have our bottom top, right? This is where we have our bottom top. So our bottom top is 13, okay? And our bottom top for this span is what? For the second panel is what? The bottom top is what? 12, okay? So we have, for this panel, we have 12. Look at the rebar, the bar number is looking at the bar number. So the bar number is 12, while for this other panel, we're having a bar number to be what? 13. Okay, 13. This is how you trace them. So since you're cutting across this area, it's going to cut across this river. You can see that the red line is touching this river. So what we are going basically is you're trying to detail everything that the red bar touch, the red line touches. Okay, anything that the red line touches is what you are trying to do what to represent. Okay, so let's stick to that. Okay, so we'll come over here and we'll say at this portion at the bottom we have what? We have 13. We have 13 over here. Let me copy this. So at this area we have 12, and here we have what? 13, right? We have 13. So what all the top at all the bars along this area that is showing on white, we're going to paste them. These are the bar 13, right? So the one on blue is the one we call out and tell is what? Bar 5. Okay. So the one on the white is the bar 13. So what we're going to do, we're not going to call them one after the other. So what we're going to do, we're going to paste the numbers. That's how you trace it on a structural drawing. All right, this is a structural drawing, mind you. And on this area, we have 12. So let's go again so that we get it. So you can see here I have 12, and this is the bar. All right, this is the rebar spacing across this line. So when I cut this section, I'm going to see this as a line, and I'm going to see this running across the span. So it is 12. So if I also cut this section, I'm going to see this line, all right, running on the, then I'm going to see this running as on top of what we're going to have, and it's 13. So that's what I'm trying to do. So the same thing here. So this is our top bar, and the top bar, what we'll get here, the top bar is what? 0.6. And this is the top bar is running on top. Okay, and this will be running on top. It has the same bar with this, right? Same bar number. This will have the same bar number. Whereas we're supposed to change that, but since we merge it together, that is what they are going to be. All right. So we're staying on the same game. All right. So what we're going to do, we're looking at this. So this will be running on the top area of it. So this will run on the top aspect of it. So this is going to run 4. This is going to run 4, 4, and also 4 along this area. So what we're going to do, the bar for it is what? 14. Okay. So 14 will be running on top. All the top we're going to be having 14, and along this area we're going to be having 13. Along this area we're going to be having 12. Okay. So let's go. So along this area we're going to be having what? 14. So 14 is going to run across, run everywhere we have our reinforcement. Okay, let me move this straight to the bar. Let me move it down. Okay, and let me also move this close. Okay, it has to be close as possible. Close, even close on top of the beam. All right. So in this, we can also move this closer too. So what we're going to do, we're going to copy this, and we're going to be copying, and we're going to be pasting them. All right. We're going to be pasting them everywhere we have our rebars. All right. You can decide to give your space depending on what you want. Okay, you can be to be spacing them depending on what you want. You can see. So in this area, it's looking very clumsy. So what I'm going to be, I'm going to be taking out 2 out of them. Okay, we'll be taking 2 out of them. So we're going to be taking them on the 2. Where we have the 2. Okay, so what do we have here? We're going to have 1 here. So we're done with this area. So we're going to be have 1 here, and here. So what we're going to do to terminate this, take this out. So here will be 12, right? So we'll copy this. We'll be sending it the same ratio. So we can leave it. So you can see, this is how simple it goes. This is how simple. This is how your section should look like. This is how your section should look like. All right? You don't see section dancing and looking up and down. This is how your section should look like. You can see a typical example of your section. Section is not looking like this, then you have to work on your drawing, right? You have to work on your drawing. So another thing we're going to do, we're going to introduce our dimension. So that's it. So what I just did here is to introduce the text here, cutting the section, all right? So section A, let's call this section A. So what you're going to do is just to dimension it. So you introduce the dimension, simple as that. I'll take another dimension. So just dimension the grid, okay? So I don't want this to look big. You can still keep in touch with this. I can still keep in touch with this, or to make it look good, I can still push it down. There's something about this area, all right? Push this up, okay? So you can see, so what we're going to do, you can see that this text is very big. So what we're going to do, we're going to match the scale. We're going to scale this text and try to make sure that they are falling in line with what we have, okay? You want to make sure that your text, one is not bigger than the other. You can see what we have here is same thing as what we have here. You can see the same property with this, all right? Even though they have different fonts, you can see that they are all together. So your text should not be so big, apart from your call out text, all right? Your call out text should be a little bit bigger. So what we're going to do right now is to check what do we have in our property. If you look at this, okay, you can see we have the height to be what, 87, okay, 87.5. So what we're going to do right here is to copy this. I'm going to make it the same 87.5, all right? So scroll down to text. You can see it's very high, so you can say 87.5. 87.5, you can see. So here is it. You can see what we've done. So it has reduced. So what we're going to do right now is to cut. I want to cut this line. Okay. So one thing I would always advise is while you're doing your section, always try to make sure you take your time. You're not so much in a hurry. You're not so much in a run, right? You take your time to do your details so that you have a very presentable, drawing, right? Otherwise, the answers by which you are going to do your design will not be so transparent. What will be the need of you doing a beautiful design and your detail will will be out, the detail will be out. So and please, if you like what you're seeing, please, I want you to subscribe, like, and comment on the section. I'd like to see your view. I want you to share your view with me on how you can do your detailing, how you can cut your section if you have a better one. And if you like what you're seeing, please don't forget to comment. All right. So you can see this is how you can detail and have an effective section. You can see what we've done. All right. You can see what we've done. So by the time you have something like this, this is a proper sectioning. I don't want to do this. I don't want to increase this because what I'm trying to do at this section, what you're going to do is I'm showing the slab, right? I'm not showing more of the beam, right? On the beam drawing, I'm going to have this call out. But this is just what? This is just the section. This is just to tell you this is just to tell you how the section. So everything we are doing here is respect to the reinforcement on the slab. So the next thing we're going to do here is going to change this because don't forget this is our reinforcement. Okay, this is the reinforcement. This is not the wall. So this line thickness, I'm using this for the beam, all right? But this is what? So I'm going to change this to the rebar. We can use it for the bottom. We can still use it for the bottom rebar. It's still not bad. But what we're going to do, we're going to maintain the color of white. You can see we're going to match property to it. We're going to match proper color property. Sorry. We're going to make sure they're on white. We're supposed to do this even before coming to this extent, but for it to be complete, we have to have a genuine idea of what we're going to do. All right. So with this, you can see that we've come to almost an end to our slab section. You can see with this, you just need to understand the basic. When you get this, you can be able to section any slab, any slab of any kind. So with this, you can see this, what we're going to do with this. Why I take this is because we're going to make this to be the concrete section of it. So what we're going to do this is to exploit the concrete, showing where the concrete properties should look like. All right. So that the meshing on the side, where we're going to do your drawing should be comprehensive, like I said. Instead as we make our design very comprehensive such that the mason understand what they're going to do, and even the carpenter will know with this seeing this, they understand how the formwork is going to do. So let's detail this before we come back to our reinforcement. All right. Okay, yeah. So talking about this now, for we to do this, because I always say, the section should be two, right? So having this section, this should be what the reinforcement, and this should be the for the formwork, all right? So what we're going to do, I'm going to take this out. I'm going to take this out because I want to match my what? I want to match the concrete, because this is going to show the concrete and what the masons and the carpenters are going to understand. They're going to work with. You should probably understand, because we have varieties of people on site. So in doing that, we are going to go to hash. I'm going to hash this. So I'm going to look at a very good concrete symbol. You can see. I'm going to take this. I have a lot of symbols here, but I'm going to go to the one of what the concrete. All right. So if I click this, I'm going to scale it up to, so let's say one scale 1:1 is good. So in doing this, I'm going to zoom in to where I want. I want it to form in the whole of this span. So I'm going to do it at once. So I'm going to introduce it so you can see. So now I now have my concrete, you can see, and I have my concrete all over in this section. Okay. So in that regard, I can come back here and copy what we have here. Can come back and copy. Let's copy this. All right. Can copy this from here. We have the same point. Can take it down here. All right. So that's what we have. You can see. So in this regard, you can start your detail, because we go with a lot of dimension. Here you're going to dimension so that we're going to understand, because this shows more of this. Here you don't dimension anything here, but here you're going to understand. You're going to dimension the overall depth of the beam, understand? So because the carpenters on site are supposed to use this drawing, right? So we're going to go with this. You can see. So we're going to call out the depth of our slab. You see, just really do a lot of dimension. Just get a quick one. So the same thing at both area. So we're going to have the same dimension here. Okay, and place the dimension anywhere. I'll go the same thing. Come back to the same spot. So it to be aligned. Okay. So you can see what we have here. So you can check your dimension. You can check your close range. You can check what's the part. So with this, you can be able to be sure that you've done. You can still do a lot of. You can still detail this. And see the drop down. It's because it's basically for form work. Somebody is doing his form work will understand that he has a nominal depth of what 30, and is going to have his bottom, so they can prefer his bottom soffit. For the beam soffit, we're going to prefer you're going to prepare these, and this will be the drop before you have the overall thickness of the slab to be what 150. So this just have a typical explanation of the drawing without stress. You can see what we have. So this, you can see, this is very, very important. This is your form work drawing, all right? So this is your uh, ROC, your reinforced concrete detailing, showing you how the rebars are going to be placed in the reinforced, you know, in the form work and the concrete drawing, all right? So when you get to this level, you can see that you've done, come to the final. Let me take this off and um, let's use the same dimension here, all right? So I'm going to copy this up. That's what basically what I'm just going to do. So you can see, so if you like what you're seeing, please, I want you to share, comment, and subscribe. I want to get your own view about what you're doing, all right? So please stay true. When you're detailing, each time you're detailing any slab, please, I want you to take this offer. I want you to make this procedure. It should be this, because with this is a well presentable drawing. I know a lot of times I see people presenting only this, not bad, but I think your drawing will be more comprehensive if you're going to take this into account, right? So in this, you can see we have the section A. So what we're going to do here is simple. We can simply copy this. Can simply copy this bulb, copy it, and introduce it to the place whereby we take it. All right. So we're going to copy this. I'm going to paste one here. I'm going to paste one on this angle. So with this, we can choose to erase this. Okay. So erasing this, we can choose to move this the line showing. This is just a representation of a section. So this section uh, icon, you can detail it of your own. Everybody can, you can make it your own way. You can make it presentable the way you want it to look like. So in this regard, you can see anybody looking at this can understand that this is where you cut this section, right? So if I'm viewing at this plan, understand, if I'm viewing at this plan, I can know that, okay, at this section, this is where, at this, on this plan, on this slab plan, this is where the section is being cut, all right? And here, now we can now go and trace, and this is the section, okay? So in this, you just move this down to the template and insert them in the template. So this is how you reinforce your slab and make it presentable, having your concrete and your formwork and section. And so in this, we're going to take all of this. Try to make sure that you don't forget anything here. Try to make sure you don't leave anything here. So anything that you use as a part of your drawing, you have to take it out. All right. So we have to take all this out and try to make sure that this will be suitable. So you can add this to any template of your choice. All right. You can decide to add them in any templates of your choice. So if you have more of the section, you can provide the template different from the template you're going to add. But if you have the same, maybe you have a smaller template and you have a very massive template, you can decide to expand it and you're going to add this in it. All right. Simply because we're just cutting one section. But if I'm going to cut in this direction and this direction, and I'm going to cut on the cantilever direction, what I'm supposed to do right here is to provide uh, another template for where I'm going to add the section. And this section should be in one, this should be identified in one page, and this should be in the other page, right? So this is how you detail it. So if you like what you've seen, don't forget to subscribe. Thanks, and bye for now.